Eric. Thank you for joining us today. We are so excited to have you join us for this conversation. Reaching critical mass. Today, we're going to be talking about optimizing teacher coaching, mentorship, and instructional supports. And we have the wonderful team from Prince George's joining us today, and we're really hoping to have a really interactive conversation. We're going to be talking about how their team has learned how to prioritize the resources to support their really large teaching force, and how they're actually using data to improve alignment, provide some really targeted supports for the teachers that need it, and really capture their impact in a meaningful way to make sure that the scope of their program is as impactful as possible. We know you guys are really, really busy, and we want to thank you so much for spending an hour of your time with us today. So for all attendees, we're going to put you in a raffle for a $100 gift card. And you will be able to use that gift card to donate to any of the organizations on Donors Choose. So after the event today, please check your email to see if you were the winner of that virtual gift card. So without any further ado, I want to introduce this amazing team that we have here today. My name is Brittany. I'm an account executive here at KickUp, and I'm joined by my colleague, Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay. I'm on the client success team. And what that means is that I'm lucky enough to work with Prince George's County on all the amazing work that we're doing that we're going to really dive into today. And I'm just so excited to introduce them. So I'll pass it over to Eric so he can tell you a little bit about himself.
Good afternoon, colleagues. It is so awesome to be here just to represent Prince George's County Public Schools and to share with you colleagues just around what we do and how we have journeyed in our development around mentoring and induction. So we're just excited about this opportunity. I have two of my esteemed colleagues with me, Damon Jones, Corey Ham, who you'll be hearing from. Just a little bit about myself. I currently am the supervisor of teacher leadership development in Prince George's County Public Schools. I started my career as a reading specialist, English teacher, moved into special talent development as a specialist, and then I became supervisor of a dynamic group of mentor teachers who are responsible for overseeing our induction program for all of our educators across the system.
Thank you, Eric. Corey, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Damon. Hello, everyone. My name is Coy Chow Ham, and I'm a mentor teacher with the Office of Professional Learning and Leadership. And so very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And as my two colleagues, Eric and Coy stated, it is truly a pleasure to be in front of you all today. We all work within the Office of Performance and Learning and Leadership. And I currently serve as a professional development specialist, helping out with the teacher leadership programs and some of our aspiring administrators in our system. Happy to be with you today.
Awesome. We all want to thank you so much. This has been such an amazing partnership that we've had with this team. We're excited to share what we've learned with them so far. But like I said, we do want this to be an interactive kind of roundtable discussion. They're going to share a little bit of what they've learned so far, but they're facing a really big challenge that we're going to talk about a little bit later today. And so they're looking to learn from you too. So if you wouldn't mind in the chat introducing yourself, tell us your name, your role, and where you're joining from. We'd love to know who's joining us today. And while you all do that, I'll tell you just a little bit about us here at KickUp. We really kind of ground ourselves in Joellen Killian's work on assessing impact. And she says that, traditionally districts have been doing this kind of black box evaluation where you're giving this great instructional support, right? Whether it's coaching, mentoring, professional learning opportunities, and we're not quite seeing the student growth that we would expect. And what she's saying is we should be doing this glass box evaluation, collect formative data like coaching logs, feedback about professional learning, informal walkthroughs, really get a pulse on whether or not your supports are actually translating to the classroom. So we here at KickUp collect everything in that glass box. And we've started with some of those tools that we're going to talk about with Prince George's today. But I know they're the stars of the show and you want to hear from them. So Eric, I'm going to pass it to you to tell us a little bit about your team and your district.
Sure. Just a little context for those who aren't familiar with Prince George's County Public Schools. We are the 20th largest district in the nation. school district in the nation. We have approximately 132,000 students, 208 schools and centers, 22,000 employee, and 10,000 teachers. 1,000 of those are new to us every year. We enjoy a 90% retention rate, which is a great thing for us. The challenge with us is that 1,000 the 10% that we lose to attrition represents 1,000 new hires every year. And as you can imagine, I'm sure this is not unique to your district. We have a difficult time recruiting the 1,000 educators to join us because we reside in such a densely populated urban setting. We're blanketed by DC public schools. On one side, we have Northern Virginia, and we're all vying for a dwindling pool of educators that our colleges and universities can't produce in large enough quantity to supply the demand. And so we're constantly recruiting new teachers, most of whom, not most, but about half of which have been conditionally certified teachers. So that poses a challenge for us around how we now mentor not just new teachers, but those who may be career changers, coming from second professions, coming from last year as a business manager for Walmart or a major corporation, now becoming a teacher. And what does that mean for us? So that's a little bit about Prince George's County. We do be in an urban environment, but we do have rural and suburban schools. We have schools in very rural settings, and we have those that are right outside of the District of Columbia. And so we are a very diverse group. Our students range in ethnicities all across we have about 74% farms for our student population. So we are a very dynamic and diverse group of schools and students. And so that's a bit about Prince George's County.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric. And they have built such an impressive teacher mentoring program. And we all just wanted to give them a moment to kind of tell us a little bit about the structure of that program and kind of how they put that together. And so, Coy, would love you to kind of start us off here, just talking a little bit about what your program looked like and what the goals are.
Sure, thank you so much. So our program is, as Eric said, we service a number of teachers throughout our school district. This year in particular, last year, we learned that, all teachers were new teachers. So we have really had to expand our reach. And we provide one-to-one services for our mentees, but that can include also servicing conditionally certified teachers, teachers who are brand new to the profession. We also provide wraparound supports to schools. So it's not just the teacher that we are servicing, but we provide those wraparound supports to the school to make sure that the administrators are supported, the school is supported, all the way down to the students and how instruction looks in the classroom. And so our goal is to make sure that we are providing robust induction support for new teachers, but moving also beyond that induction phase. So not forgetting about them after that third year of teaching, but continuing to provide them with opportunities to learn and grow and be successful in the classroom.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Coy. Anything to add to that, David?
Yes, the only thing I would add, because Coy did a beautiful job describing our department, but she was also being very humble that the other layer of supports that the mentors provide is on a systemic level. So they also offer trainings, and Coy is integral part with this. Is with our most of our trainings come from an acronym we use. It's called PEEP, but it stands for Professional Educators Induction Program. And as you see on the slide, we feel in our department that the induction program for most teachers, particularly our conditional teachers, is a 3-year period because usually our teachers usually take about 2 to 3 years in order to become certified due to the extra classes they have to take on top of their bachelor's degree, as well as their tenure date is 3 years and 1 day. So that's why we try to align the induction services that Coy described before over a 3-year period. But as she stated, we do a one-to-one level, a school site level where we may have small professional learning groups, and also on a systemic level, particularly in the summertime when our new teachers are being onboarded into our school system.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for that overview. And we're going to dive in a little bit more about exactly how they prioritize the supports when they're providing so many supports to so many folks at the district. But we'd love for everyone to chime in a little bit and tell us a little bit more about your role within your mentoring or coaching ecosystem. And while you all do that, I'm going to go ahead and have the team at Prince George's tell us a little bit about how they figured out a way to really dive in and figure out what's the best way to have the biggest impact. I think, Damon, you're starting us off here.
Yes, thank you. Yes, in the past, I have two processes in order to have mentors to be attached to teachers that are coming into our system. So just so you have some rough numbers, as Eric stated before, typically we have roughly about 1,000 new teachers that come in per year. And fortunately, we're the only county in the state of Maryland that has what we call full release mentor teachers. So we have a department of approximately 30 mentor teachers that they support 1,000 teachers. So if you just do the math, that really doesn't add up to seeming a number that's even manageable. So that's why you see the graphic 50 to 1 mentor, because if we actually had 1 mentor for each new teacher coming in the system, that's what the ratio would look like. However, the recommended ratio that you see on the slide of 15 to 1, that's where we got that number from New Teacher Center, a group that we've worked with in the past that develops new teachers, as well as the MSDE COMAR regulations that are recommended for our mentor teachers. So our goal is to try to provide some level of mentoring services to all new teachers that are coming into the system, whether they're conditionally certified or they have a traditional certification.
Perfect, thank you. And I know that you guys have really dug into this tiered approach this year to really make sure that you're kind of focused on getting the right supports to the right people. Eric, can you speak a little bit about this tiered approach?
Sure. So sort of the genesis behind this approach, a couple of years ago, we had new leadership. We had a new chief of human resources. We had a new director, and they were looking at our numbers and realizing that 30 mentors servicing 1,000 new teachers wasn't quite feasible, nor was it manageable. And it was leading to just burnout, really underserving the group of teachers that we were charged with supporting. And so we came up with a way that we could do mentoring in a way that was more equitable. And so the tiered approach, we recognize that all teachers coming in do not have the same needs. And so those who may be conditionally certified may have different needs from those who come out of traditional teacher prep program. And so we looked at a way that we could make mentoring the assignments more equitable. So those who needed more would get more time. So there were some teachers who we knew had to have that face-to-face weekly one-on-one support, where there were some who just needed monthly a touch or just a frequent call to say, how you doing, to check in. But there were those that we knew that we had to report to on a weekly basis, such as those who were in our alt-cert programs, as well as teachers who may be identified as struggling based on performance evaluations. But then there were those that we could just see periodically or on a as needs basis. So we came up with a tiered approach to really make a way for us to provide equitable services, realizing that our numbers we didn't have the means to meet the demands. And so this approach helped us to sort of tier our services to ensure that we were still providing services so that every teacher who came to the county would say, I have someone that I can point to as a mentor, or there are supports in place that I know that I can rely on for my 3 years of induction. So those included the one-to-one mentoring, but they also included the PLC support. And so what we learned, the beauty through the pandemic, one of the silver linings, if I would add, there's no beauty in the pandemic, but the silver lining for us was we learned how to leverage technology because we had to. And so being able to create PLCs. So now, before when there was a challenge trying to pull teachers together after school, we could use technology to pull those teachers together in the PLC group after school, cross grade levels, cross schools, meeting with the mentor teacher or teachers in a collaborative learning environment, because we know teachers learn from the mentors, but they also were learning a lot from each other. So those PLCs became powerful ways for us to expand our ability to connect to more teachers. And then tier 3, we really looked at professional development as a way to do outreach. And so the PEEP 2.0 is really our monthly series, but there was also a PEEP on the go, where we're now taking PD to schools because we realized there was a need for PD in the buildings based on data, based on what we're seeing in trends in our observations, based on principal feedback. Coy, Damon, you want to add anything to the tiered approach?
I do want to add that not only did we have to leverage the technology, but we really had to leverage our teams, right? And so things that our office has been just awesome and allowing us to work as small teams to support different initiatives that are going on throughout the school district. But with that, mentor teachers also support schools in building and sustaining their new teacher academies. So this helps to really build the capacity of the schools. When we are not available, then they know they have built a support system for those new teachers who are coming into their buildings, because from school to school, the number of new hires can look very differently. Where you might have 2 new hires at one school, you can have 13 at another. And so that's been really, really important for us as we are also extending the reach of our professional development sessions for teachers. We also have PEEP XP, which is specifically geared towards online and hybrid learning, where teachers can come and get strategies every month. They can go to PEEP 2.0, they can go to PEEP XP, and they can get those offerings. And I must say that the following has been very large and it's really expanded, which is just phenomenal, because there isn't always money for teachers to receive when they attend these sessions. So they want to learn, and they go and they take advantage of these opportunities.
And if I can just add, we weren't always tasked with providing one-to-one support for mentors, for mentees. We were primarily responsible for those in our officer program and those who were a part of a self-referral, as Damon mentioned, or principal referral. The new vision for leadership was that every teacher that comes to Prince George's County on day one is now assigned a mentor teacher. Now for us, that means a significant shift in how we went about doing our work, because now we had to say, okay, there's 30 of us, 1,000 of them. How can we ensure that we do this in a way that is equitable, that is fair, and that still meets critical mass? And so we looked at where were the priority schools. We started there to ensure that we had schools who were identified as high need. Those schools had typically high turnover rates, and we knew we had to be there as a priority. But again, so we're still learning, and we hope to hear from you all and how you all have navigated, because the challenge this year will be, we anticipate even an increase in conditioning certified teachers coming to join us. And so that number may expand to 1,200 that we now have to serve. And so it is an ongoing challenge. We have not arrived. This is a learning process for us. We are evolving every day with every session, with every mentor forum. We talk about how to improve our practice to make sure that we are providing a quality mentoring induction experience, not just for the first year, but for all 3 years of that induction phase for those teachers.
That was a great overview. Thank you all so much for sharing that. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop the question in the chat. We're definitely going to save some time at the end for a Q&A and discussion. But yeah, so that's kind of where our partnership came into place, was really trying to find a way to go from 300 teachers of getting really intensive supports to making sure that you can scale that to every new teacher getting some supports, but in a still a really personalized way where they feel like they're getting connected to the support that they need. And so I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay and the PG team to talk a little bit about the data they collected to find that balance.
Sure. So yeah, I am on the client success team, and that means that I'm lucky enough to work hand in hand with our partners here today to help them design and configure the data collection that's going to make this ambitious and beautifully designed project come to life. And as such, the team has developed some goals around data collection, and I've been able to help them work backwards from those goals to design the data collection instruments that are going to be helping them target their supports. So the goals that the PG County team has set out to meet are to increase alignment on their priorities across their team, right? You have people who are trying to provide really personalized support, but how do you keep people sort of on the same page? And then they've thought about the ways to target supports to be the most relevant that they can, and then also thinking about ways to capture the impact of that mentoring work and see it play out. So using these goals, the team developed 3 data collection instruments: a sort of coaching support log, a walkthrough that is intended to measure the impact, and a mentor activity log to help mentors sort of understand how they're spending their time. And we're going to dig into all of those instruments, but just wondered if, Coy, who's in a really unique position. She is one of the mentors, but she's also stepped up to the plate to be the person who's thinking high level about data. How did you design your data structures to help you adjust where you need to, but still be really strategic in targeting supports and needs?
So thank you, Lindsay. Well, I will say Lindsay is so humble. She really, really helps us out quite a bit over at PGCPS. But one of the things that we had to do was we had to begin to really engage with the data a bit more and really look at what we had already, which, sometimes you think you're collecting the right data. Uh, but then once you get down to it and you start asking those good meaty questions about what you want to see and what level of impact you have, then you can really have to go back. And so we have had to be very intentional about making sure that we were streamlined in our approaches and everyone was speaking the same language, which is a little difficult sometimes when you're working with a large team who are, everyone kind of had their own way of doing things. And so we had to come together as a collective and really have honest conversations about the kind of data we wanted to collect, how we wanted to measure our impact and growth over time, and how we wanted to even measure the growth of our teachers and how that impacted student learning and achievement. And so it wasn't always pretty. It wasn't always easy. And data, what can I say about data? It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. So we just kept digging our heels, and KickUp has been very instrumental in allowing us to see everything at a global perspective and allowing us to really hone in on some of those trending areas that we wanted to look at, especially right now with distance learning and how everyone has had to shift their classroom practices. We really had to be intentional about how we were looking at instruction and engaging students in learning, and how we can use that data to provide more robust professional development for our teachers. So I hope I answered your question with that, but yeah, it's been an adventure for sure.
Yes, I've been lucky to be on that adventure with you as we figure it out and adjust course. So you have this complex support system. Support needs to be both personalized and timely, but you want to keep everyone on the same page, as I mentioned, with that alignment piece. So you have these two different kind of lenses that we're looking at this from. And I'm wondering if maybe Damon, you could speak to on the side of the mentoring team, how are you using data to identify alignment? And then maybe Eric can talk a little bit about at the district or school level. And then we're actually going to get a chance to look at some of their real live data, so you can see sort of how they're making sense of everything that's being recorded in terms of alignment.
All right. Well, thank you again, Lindsay. Yes, basically with the data, we try to align it to our evaluation performance system that we have for all of our teachers in Prince George's County Public Schools. So our evaluation system is called Framework for Teaching by Charlotte Danielson. It has 4 main domains, but also some components and elements that we deem that a teacher should be able to perform in the classroom. So a lot of time, most of the time, if not all of the time, a mentor may go in and speak or try to train or observe a peer observation with their mentee teacher to see how well they're doing in one of these respective domains or components within the FFT curriculum. So how KickUp has been helpful is when a mentor is specifically focusing on a particular domain. Let's say, for example, one of our domains is domain 2 around classroom management. Usually a mentor will want to have some pre and post data so they can see if there is a level of growth through their conversations with the mentee, but also the mentee's feedback from their administrator from their former observations, because the administrators follow the same evaluation system. And fortunately, the majority of our mentors have the same certification in the Framework for Teaching curriculum as administrators do. So we wanted the language to be aligned with what they're hearing in the schools from their school leadership, as well as the data being able to inform us where we're spending a lot of our time. And as Coy stated earlier, what type of changes do we need to make in our mentoring practices? And then, I'll allow Eric to talk a little more about how it affects our district priorities, because many times he has to attend those district level meetings, which we call learning walks with our high need schools.
Thanks, Damon. So we partnered with the University of Maryland, which is located in Prince George's County. We have close relationships with the faculty there. And so we were able to engage in a level of research and inquiry cycles with University of Maryland. Out of that work came a cycle of continuous systemic improvement. And so each of our principals, each of our clusters are engaged in learning cycles where they go through a plan, do, study, act of continuous school improvement. And so out of those learning walks, each principal will develop a principal problem of practice, a teacher problem of practice, and a student problem of practice. So I attend those meetings with a few of my colleagues. We will listen to the principals, teachers problem of practice, usually centered around some component of the framework for teaching, normally lesson planning or how to engage. This year, because of the pandemic, there was a lot of concerns around how do I engage students virtually, or how do I have a robust conversation with students through the computer. So a part of that, the learning walk, was to really look at what the school's priorities were, and then to align our research, around, align our support efforts to ensure that the support we were providing to those schools was aligned to the school's priorities. And so that for us has been beneficial, because where we have mentors in those buildings, we can share that data. We know a key focus will be on lesson planning because these schools are all struggling. So we go and do a deep dive around lesson planning as a component of our mentoring, and then we'll go back. And so the beauty of KickUp is allowing us to look at those components of the framework for teaching and look at some baseline data. I'm sorry. We can look at some baseline data and then provide some resources to those teachers, and then go back and look at growth over time as it pertains to lesson planning, as it pertains to engaging students, as it pertains to using technology to enhance instruction. And so really being able to align our district priorities or align our services to meet the district needs for us has been a key goal of ours, because we were doing things we thought was good work, and it was good work. But if it's not in lockstep and in concert with systemic priorities, then sometimes we're working in vain and we're working in silos. So this alignment has really helped us to really look at our work and hone in on our practices to ensure that we are doing the work of the district.
Very good. So I would love to get a chance to dig into the data. Coy said it's dirty work, but we like to make it look beautiful. So what we were going to see on this slide is the way that Prince George's County has kept track of the ways that mentors are spending their time across different areas through what they call their work streams. And their mentors wear many hats and take on a lot of roles. And this has given them, the mentors themselves, as well as this team in front of you, the opportunity to shine a light on and understand how people are spending their time to ensure that that is the most impactful. So I'm just curious, Coy, or anyone else, if you could speak to how this time spend has helped you get to alignment across your team in terms of focus areas or priorities.
Sure. So one of the things that we do is in our mentor forums, we meet monthly, we meet on a regular basis, sometimes bi-monthly we will meet, and we have intentional conversations about our data, and we look at how we are spending our data with our coaching logs and how we support teachers. But we're also looking at this, what you see right here, which is this work stream data. And our, like Lindsay said, we wear many hats. So many of our mentor teachers, we are the ones who actually are the facilitators and the creators of the professional educators induction program. So we not only support the teachers in the school and are pushing out to support teachers and school leaders in schools, but we're actually building these trainings as well for the entire school district. So we have our new teacher boot camp. When we look at data like this, it helps us to really think about how do we want to and how do we need to support teachers? What do our teachers need when they come to us in the fall? So this is very telling for us when we see how many hours we have spent maybe in our coaching log working on domain 3 instruction from Charlotte Danielson's framework for teaching, because that helps us to recalibrate as a team and say, this is what we know teachers need this month. So with this, the work stream data is important because we want to make sure that we are putting our efforts where they need to be, and that, we know many hands make light work. So we are providing a number of professional development opportunities for teachers, anywhere from well-being to work-life balance to, engaging students in discussion and questioning techniques. So it can really run the gamut, but we have to be intentional about how we are recording as well, because if, you spell a teacher's name one day, you put the middle initial, and the next day you don't, then your data looks differently. And so we've had to have those kind of conversations where asking, do I need to log this? Do I need to log that? Is this something that I need to capture? And really coming together as a body to decide, what do we need to capture? And how are we all using the same language so that we're all kind of running in the same direction, in a safe way. So we are looking at it more frequently. We have help sessions, drop-in help sessions every Friday for our mentor teachers, just with KickUp, so that we can get everyone acclimated to using it, because it is a new platform for us. And those have been really helpful in just getting everyone on board and having more conversations about the data and what it looks like, and them engaging in their own data individually and their own practice as mentor teachers.
Awesome. So the last data visualization that you saw was high level. How are mentors spending their time? What you see here on this slide is really the data that illuminates the time that mentors are spending with their mentees in different instructional priorities. So this is going to give your team the opportunity to take a look at how are these mentors spending their time across that Danielson framework for teaching that you've mentioned several times. So this allows you to kind of take a magnifying glass and zoom in and say, like, are we spending time where we would expect on those places that we're prioritizing? And then, what do we do with that information, and how do we support mentors to ensure that they're sort of meeting those priorities for us? So just curious about how you've approached this and maybe how it ties to any other, school or district improvement plans or priorities.
Well, we did have to, when we first started looking at this data, once we got our first real gauge with output, we had to really have some conversations about how we were preparing teachers for teaching online, and what that looks like. Our district is very large. And so one of the great things about having a large district is that generally you have access to a lot of resources. But we had to have those kind of conversations where we were saying, you know what, we have access to these resources, teachers have so much, but are we truly showing them how to use it, and what does that look like in the classroom? So we had to dig in and say, am I spending enough time providing demonstration lessons and co-teaching or lesson planning with my teachers? Teachers were really struggling, and dare I say, it wasn't just teachers who were new to the profession. We have serviced more. We have really expanded our reach, I would say, far beyond what we ever had during this pandemic, because everyone is a new teacher. And so we had to really, really think about what we were providing for them on a one-to-one basis. Is it just a conversation with me telling you what you should be doing in your class, or is it more inquiry based? Is it more me modeling with you and really co-teaching with you, really lesson planning with you, and really, really, really speaking to your needs? So every teacher's needs are different. And we realize that even more, that the schools look different, and every school is their own little government, So we had to really look at our data, and we have been able to do that with this, where we're able to drill in a bit more and look at specific components. So if a principal says, I feel like my new teachers are really, really struggling globally with engaging students in learning, especially at the secondary level. We know that is an issue because students are not obligated to turn their cameras on. And then we had to think about how does the support look for teachers who are struggling with this? It's easier said than done. And so when we're doing that and having those kind of conversations, it helps drive us. And it also helps us to think about what kind of professional development we need to provide on a monthly basis. And also in the summer, before the new school year gears up. And we're still hiring teachers. So, what does that look like? Because someone who's coming in January, November, their supports look different from someone who started at the beginning of the school year. So this has been extremely instrumental for us being able to drill in this way.
And this is a global perspective, right, across the district. But I imagine, Eric, when you're having the conversations with those principals going back to their individual building plans, like having this data to drive the conversation between the mentor and the principal to say, are we providing the supports in the right place? Is this driving forward my plan? Should I be seeing improvement when I go and, do my classroom visits, that sort of thing in those areas? So thank you all for sharing that. We do want to hear from the rest of the group as well. I think we have a quick poll for you. How does your team currently track areas of need and/or coaching and mentoring efforts? So we'll just give everybody a moment here to chime in a little bit about what their team is currently doing. All right. It looks like we have an overwhelming response from the group that each mentor or coach actually has their own log. And Coy, your team has had this kind of systemic approach for a while, right? Even though you're new to KickUp, you still always kind of had a centralized location for it.
We did, but everyone had kind of their own practice,
Okay.
Saying that. And so this is one of the reasons why we decided to have a partnership with KickUp, is because we knew there was a need for a more streamlined approach so that we were all speaking the same language. Because for instance, one person could consider an informal observation, it would look different to them, so we wanted to make sure that we were all capturing in the same way so that our data was a little bit more valid and we could really speak to that and use that to help inform our practice and make our decisions with movement.
Thank you so much for sharing about that. So I keep talking about these three instruments. They're sort of like the triple crown to me, with the classroom visit walkthrough tool being like sort of the final hurrah that's going to bring all of this information together. So you're capturing how your mentors are spending their time. You're getting insights into how they're spending their time specifically with mentees. And then the real bang for your buck is going to be able to come when you've collected enough data through classroom visits to say, okay, here's the impact that we're having. We're spending, hours and hours with teachers in these areas. We're spending, strategically spending our time with maybe our highest need schools or those teachers we've identified who need the most support. Is that shining through in their classroom when we get a chance to go in? So just curious, I know that Eric, this has been a major vision for you in pushing towards this. So I'm just curious about your perspective. Hopefully I didn't steal all of your thunder, but can you share why and how this fits into your vision for success with all of your data collection?
Sure. So as you said, this was the piece that really got me excited, because we had always had support logs. But I would routinely get questions around impact. How do we know the time on task is leading to measurable impact? And we really didn't have anything outside of anecdotal stories or teacher feedback in our surveys, but there was nothing that we could show really from month to month, week to week, where teachers were improving their process. We were changing behaviors based on those touches. And so the classroom walks for us, they were never organized in a way. You had 31 mentors serving as 31 different entities, pretty much doing their own thing, looking at something totally different every time. But when we begin to look at the district data and what were the priority areas, we now could go in with these learning walks, these peer observations with a focus around specific components. Give them a rating, not evaluative, but a coaching rating based on observations. And because of the framework we're teaching, it's all based on just what we see. Again, we were not evaluative in our approach. It is just coaching language we would use. And so being able to go in and assign some type of a metric or score to what we saw to rate it, and then share that data, look at it collectively as a team, look at what resources we had where we can go in now and provide some post-observation support, and then come back and look at if there's been improvement or not. That to me was the exciting piece. And I will be honest, for our team, initially it was, oh, here we go again, something else to do. We already had these logs that are time consuming. Now we have to go in, and Eric wants us to go in and do 2 observations per quarter with the teachers. And I didn't do a good job selling the why. I assumed that everyone knew that the why for me was really the questions around impact of mentors, especially when at time, and I'll be very transparent. We were in a teacher shortage. We had 31 teachers. Many would say, well, why are they not in classrooms? Why are they not in classrooms, right? How can you validate or justify the need to be the only LEA in Maryland with full release mentor teachers? And for us, this was the way to help really show growth over time. So that piece for me was really critical, because impact was just the word that we were hearing across the system, and this helps us to really show that impact.
Yes, I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing the challenges but also the vision of, rolling out those informal walkthroughs. So as we, continue to drive this conversation forward, I just want to again share sort of the high level vision for this. Your team has worked really hard to unify on a few data collection instruments. How do you intend to now and in the future use that data triangulation to ensure that you are supporting your schools, your teachers equitably, and deploying supports where they need to be? And sorry, I didn't direct that toward one person or another. I know Eric could probably speak to this because he's smiling.
I lost you for 1 second. You mind repeating the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. So just curious about, as you've unified on these data collection instruments, how are you using that to both triangulate to ensure equitable support distribution, as well as think about how you scale this program to, support more people?
So the beauty of this is we have, as Damon mentioned earlier, we have monthly mentor forums, where now those meetings, we really can focus on a central component of data. And those conversations, we're able to now have more informed conversations with our stakeholders. We're now looking at collaborating and partnering more with our IDs and our social superintendents, because they want to know how we're supporting now, because the stakes are really high. We're receiving inquiries all the time around how are we supporting new educators, and not just new educators, but even veteran teachers who are struggling during the pandemic. And so being able to now have focused data inquiry meetings that are now aligned to a specific area of concentration has really informed our practice. It is really giving us more tools to speak to the success of our program, and also the areas where we have to grow and develop. And again, it is still for us, we're still unwrapping the paper sort of off of the tool and learning how to leverage it. But it has been an eye-opening experience for us to really look at this data tool as a way to just really develop teachers across our system. So we're excited.
Great, thank you so much. So at this time, we wanted to open it up to questions. We saw that last question at the end, like they've built this really great, really high functioning program for 300 teachers, but now they're having to scale it to over 1,000 teachers. And so we wanted to open it up to the group for any best practices or any thoughts that the group might have in terms of things that they found worked really well at their systems. But before we jump in there, we did have one question from Sarah. And, Damon or Coy, feel free to jump in here. How does the training support differ from year 1 to year 3?
I'm going to talk briefly about the difference of our two different programs, and then Coy would definitely be our expert to speak about the practitioner side of what it looks like. But fortunately, as Eric stated before, another one of our initiatives is to support alternative certification teachers, or we call them AltCert for short. So that's a partnership we have with Teach for America, Notre Dame of Maryland University, as well as our own homegrown program called the Prince George's County Resident Teacher Program. Now, Teach for America and NDMU, those two programs are 2-year programs. So we're required, and our partnership with those organizations is that we provide direct mentoring services for a 2-year period. So yes, those services, I would say, are staggered, or what we call tiered. And more so in year 2, our services are a bit more refined. So we may see with our first year teacher that they may need more of a focus with lesson planning and classroom management, whereas in their second year, we may focus more on discussion techniques and following up on their other professional development. But that's one of the distinctions that we make in our own department. All of our other teachers that we service usually are only direct services for 1 year. And we would like it to be over for 3 years intentionally. So that's why, it was a great idea for Eric to come up with the idea for us to have tiered services, because that would also include those veteran teachers that are beyond their first year of teaching. Corey, did you want to talk a little bit about what it looks like on the practitioner side?
So it can really differ. It depends on the teacher and it depends on the school. We are very intentional about helping schools build their new teacher academies, and those are really essential because they're school-based. And so our mentor teachers, we push into the schools on a regular basis to help sustain that new teacher academy, because when teachers are just coming in, if I'm a new hire to the building, then I can go and get the help that I need. And it's more customized to what's going on in my building, right? And then teachers can also go to PEEP 2.0 on a monthly basis, and they choose the sessions that they would like to go to. So they have a variety of sessions to choose from, and they go to where their need is. And so it can look different in that way. Our goal, though, even say, for instance, the teachers that I support this year, who are new teachers, I won't forget about them. At the beginning of next school year, those will be the first hands that I touch, so that they know that they still have that touch point and someone to support them as they move into their second year. And we do the same thing for the third year teachers too.
The only last thing I want to add to Corey's point is the other thing that our mentor teachers do is form strong partnerships with our university partners. So some of our mentors are responsible for actually instructing the classes that our mentee teachers are taking towards their certification. So a big component of the mentor's job is to somewhat informally track a teacher's certification needs. So hopefully, for example, some of our teachers just need their praxis test scores in order for them to receive a state certification. So mentoring is going to be a little different for them versus a teacher that needs the praxis test, as well as, let's say, sometimes up to 30 credits, postgraduate credits that they need towards their state certification. So our mentors are very particular about acting as somewhat informal auditors to say, okay, are you on track with getting your state certification? Because we definitely, our main 3 goals in our department is to train them, retain them, and move them into some level of a succession plan on a teacher leadership track or a school leadership track.
And that's where the PLCs come into play. So you think about just the amount of teachers who are conditionally certified that need, to pass the praxis test. So we have PLCs specifically for that, that are run and, by mentor teachers, where they provide that praxis support. They provide that support for those teachers who their PLCs just for well-being. Just how am I surviving and thriving right now in this school year? And I'm working from home, or I'm not, or I'm online, or I'm not, what do I do? And how can I just stay in the classroom and be successful? So we have a number of those professional learning communities that we are really, really leveraging right now.
Great, thank you. We did have another question came up. I think it was based on that comment you made, Eric, about how, when you reflected, you didn't do such a great job of buying people in at first. The question was, how did you eventually get the buy-in for mentors to be tracking their work like this?
I don't know if I fully got the buy-in yet. So let me, so I don't, but no, once the group understood that this was really another piece to add to what they were doing. It's not something extra, but it was really aligned to the work that we were doing. We were already in the classroom coaching around the framework for teaching, coaching around those components. But this was just a way to just look at how do I track the data? How do I look at growth over time? So I think one of the things when you talk about it through a lens around data, when they see the impact of your coaching and to say, okay, I know that you have a feel-good story based on what your mentee is telling you about the product. But when the supervisor or director asks, well, where is their evidence of success? And we can point to say, this teacher started off at a level 1 with question and discussion techniques in February. And now just in 1 month of coaching, they can move to a proficient or distinguished level, right? I can point now, I'm a small piece of a big pie, but I can say that because I targeted that area specifically, I can point to my coaching and mentoring as somewhat of an impact, having an impact on the teacher's performance. And so when they look at it from that angle, understand that this is not a gotcha, it's not another thing for you to do, but a way for you to get better at your practice, a way to show really that this office has tremendous impact. I think that leads to buy-in.
Yeah, and not being able to see it just on the individual level, but seeing it on a global level too. If they're managing 30 to 50 different folks and they can show that correlation for all of them, now you're talking a little bit more like a strong correlation. Yeah. Great. And then we had a couple more questions from Miss Green. It's two-parter. Could you speak about the mentoring induction support services self-referral form? And who facilitates the sessions that the teachers choose?
Yeah, that actually goes in conjunction with our new teacher boot camp training. Our office is responsible for directly facilitating 2 of our large systemic trainings in the summertime. So usually in the second week of August, we have our what we call our new teacher boot camp training. It usually runs for about 4 days, and it can run usually, I would say, from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock. But all the classes are free to Prince George's County employees, as well as they are not mandatory, they're voluntary. But then those teachers can come in and get a better understanding, at least some brief workshops to prepare them for what they are about to come when they start the school year. Now, during that time period, I'm responsible for distributing the self-referral form to our new teachers, and I do that through a Google format. The new teacher will fill out their logistical information at their school, as well as what areas of concern that they deemed that they need help with. So then I will look at that Google sheet and try to attach them with a mentor that is closely related in their actual teacher certification. And so they can provide them with some help. So sometimes that works with the general one-to-one match, and other times it may be that the mentor is giving them general services, but may refer them to another mentor that's in our department that may, for example, have a background in special education, and I may have a background in science. So there's times when our mentors will actually team up to work with a particular mentee based on what their needs are. The second question, who facilitates the session that teachers choose? Essentially, it goes in 2 parts. The classes that we offer really aren't classes, they're more workshops. So the teachers can choose what they need. But when they're taking classes with the universities, that usually is deemed by their certification track, and certification officer will tell them you need human development or what have you. So we're usually having classes that will help them better their practice and their performance in the classroom that will complement the classes from the universities.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, I know we are right at time, but I just want to thank the team at Prince George's so much for taking the time to share all that you've learned and share some of the challenges that you've had, which I think can be really helpful to learn from. We will be sharing the slides that we went over today, as well as the recording of today's session. So in case you want to refer back to it, you have that. And then we also wanted to let you know we want feedback about this session to incentivize you. For every response we get, we'll actually be donating $5 to the NEA Foundation. So please feel free to go to kickup.co/feedback and provide some feedback for us, because we're all about continuous improvement and making sure that we're spending time and resources wisely. So we really appreciate that. We also wanted to give a couple of free resources. One is a coaching and support log template. If you're just getting started with this work and you kind of want a place to start, you have that. We also have some tips for getting started with support logs, things like building that buy-in that Eric spoke on a little bit earlier. We again want to thank everyone for joining us today, but we especially want to thank the Prince George's team for all of the time that you've devoted to putting today together. This stuff is invaluable, and hopefully we can create a community amongst all the folks that joined us today. But thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.